Guys, Crypto With Dinny, and it's Dinny here. And it's great to see you on. So, I've been doing this series, it's for YouTube, and it's just sort of my brain dump of a lot of the things and principles I've learned over a decade of investing, sort of getting myself out of financial ruin or financial dependence to a level that I call my financial freedom, or else my financial goals. And I filmed the last one, it was about 20 minutes long, and people got good value out of it, so I said I'm going to elaborate on some of the things and pull the thread a little bit further. And I do believe that everyone can become rich, because when you study it, the process is so simple. It's just, I think the problem is that we're not taught it early enough, which is again one of my motivations for sharing this, and hopefully people who are a little bit younger than me catch it. So like and share if you get value. But we either don't learn it early enough, or we choose not to. We can't defer our consumption. It was funny, today I got paid from one of my companies, and one of the lessons, this has been hammered from many mentors, it's a timeless principle, and it's pay yourself first. And what that means is, as soon as your wages come into your account, buy your assets. Get your assets before you spend it on liabilities. Purchase the assets that you want to purchase. And I've heard that from a good few of my mentors. And that is a timeless principle, because if we always just spend on liabilities, and I shared it today on social media, you might have seen it, and it was like rich people, they invest their money and they spend what's left over, and poor people, they spend their money and they invest what's left over. And that is the difference, that if you do want to become financially wealthier, then we need to accumulate assets and always be buying our assets and accumulating our assets. And that takes a period of deferred gratification, because you're spending your money on something that isn't going to bring you any value today, but in the future it's going to bring you, more value. So I suppose when I break down sort of finance or my journey in it, I have four sort of levels that I classify that I've been on. And you sort of start at the bottom, or you might be at the bottom, or I was at the bottom anyway, and I call that financial ruin or financial dependence. And I was on the dole, I didn't even have a job, and I had no way of generating income, so I was relying on external support from the government to help me along. The second step on that then is, when I got it together, is what I call financial independence, in that I had a job or I had a business and I was able to look after myself and produce income. And once you get to financial independence, I think it's the time to start paying yourself first and start accumulating those assets. And if you do that, then you're able to go to the next stage on the ladder, which I call financial freedom, or my financial goals. And that's where you've built up enough assets that they cover your living expenses. So now working is optional. You don't have to work to live, because you have an asset portfolio that covers your living expenses. Now, the financial freedom or reaching financial goals, to me, it's not as extravagant as a lot of us think. I remember years ago when I was made to actually write down the figures and figure out, what can you live on, Dinny? The number is generally a lot lower than we think. We overestimate it. We think it's a huge number. But to me, what's important to me is having time to go walking and surfing. It doesn't cost any money to go surfing. I just go down the beach and I do it. Going out walking, jogging, all these things are cool. Fair enough, doing my motorbike, and that does cost money. But, to get your minimum financial freedom number is generally much lower than we think. And that's just about accumulating a certain amount of assets, a critical amount, that the cash flow off them covers all living expenses and liabilities. And then the fourth stage, which I'm not there yet, but I will be, is financial dreams. And I think that is when you can be extravagant, and you can buy what you want, and you can have 3 cars just for the sake of having 3 cars, and you can purchase any material thing that you want. But I think that, to me, that comes in time. To me, I don't want to take from my asset portfolio too soon, because I destroy the compounding effect. Now, in the last video, I was chatting a little bit about Warren Buffett. I'm trying to teach people about compounding, because compounding is literally how you get rich. And it's so easy. It just takes time. The irony is that we're told investing is risky. But the reality, the facts, the truth is anyone who's invested in the S&P index for 20 years has made money. No humans lost money. So is it really that risky to invest, or is it risky not to invest is, what I'd argue. And I would say it is risky not to invest. It's really risky. But I want to talk just a little bit about investing and how you do it, because people think there's a barrier to entry. You need to be super smart. And the irony is, investing is one of the few areas where a novice can outperform a professional. How can a novice outperform a professional? What was that last name? Morgan Housel wrote The Psychology of Investing. And I'll get back to Warren Buffett now in a second. He wrote The Psychology of Investing and was a janitor, and he died with 8 million. He had a really low paying job, minimum wage, but he was just a good investor. And how was he a good investor? He was just consistent. You guys know that I'm always teaching dollar cost average. Don't try and trade. Don't try and time markets. Just be consistent and stay in the market and keep adding to your asset portfolio. Well, that's what this guy done. And over a lifetime of just being invested in an index, when he died, he had 8 million in investment, and he had the minimum paying job. And it's so mad, because people think you need to be wealthy. And this is, like, investing is one space where having an high IQ, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters in investing, because investing is about your behaviors and your actions. And the irony of, we'll talk about Fidelity. You may have heard me mention this before, but Fidelity done a survey on the highest, Fidelity, one of the largest asset managers in the world, okay, thousands and thousands of investment accounts, but they've done a survey on the highest performing investment accounts in their brokerage. And the irony, the absolute irony, is the dead people were the ones who are outperforming the living. The dead were better investors than the living. Why? Because the dead couldn't do anything. The assets just sat and they had time in the market. Versus the living, they could exit the market, they could enter the market, they could trade, they could swap, they could try and beat the market. And to me, that's just a huge lesson. And when we look at the history of the great investors, we see that it's what they didn't do that gave them their success over time, not what they did do. Trying to trade Bitcoin is crazy, because you can be out of that market for a day and the thing can move 20%, 15%, 10%. And it might have been going sideways for 6 months. So in one day out of a market, you've undone 6 months worth of work. And I've seen a similar thing in the S&P. It was 8 days in the S&P. If you weren't in the market, you lost half your returns over 10 years. Over 8 days of being out of the markets. That's why it's critical, it's crazy to come out of a market. The investors who've done the best in 2020 are the investors who stayed in the market when the whole thing crashed in March and we thought the world was going to end. Well, those who sold and panic sold and got out of their positions missed out on the massive bull run that followed as the market recovered like never before. The same in 2008 and the same in the dot-com bubble and crash. And it's just so counterintuitive. Us as humans, we're not designed for finance, because we have emotions of fear and greed and we think we're going to outdo this market. But when you study the history of what actually works, panic selling is the worst thing you can do, and exiting positions in a market. Like, to put it crudely, markets go up over time. That's what they do. With volatility, sometimes they pull back, but over time, they just go up. So me being in a market is the best place for my money to be, because it can grow. And because it's investable capital, and that just means it's money that I don't need today or tomorrow, I can afford to leave it there. It's like I own my house, but if someone says to me, Dinny, today your house is worth $500,000. Okay, grand. And then he says 2 days later, Dinny, your house is only worth 300 grand. I don't care. Like, I live here. I'll be living here for forever probably, so it doesn't really matter to me. If I want to sell my house and move to a different house, it would matter. But when you don't need to sell your assets, drawdowns don't matter. And we know markets recover over time and they go up and to the right, whether it's crypto or stocks. It's time in the market is what matters. And in my last long form video, I chatted a good bit about Warren Buffett, because he's like this amazing investor. But when you break down why he's an amazing investor, do you know why? Hit the like button, guys, if you like these videos. Throw a comment in as well. or a share, or a subscribe. Warren Buffett is so wealthy because he's lived so long. And that's it. Because he's nearly 100 and he's been compounding for so long. 99% of Buffett's wealth, 99% of Buffett's wealth has been generated after retirement age. Okay? It's just that when he reached 65, 67, whatever, he chose not to exit and to allow his money to continue to compound. And it's done that 65, 75, 85, 95, a further 30 years of compounding. Because the longer you're in a market, the more compounding works for us. And that's why I'm sort of passionate about trying to teach, you know, I wish someone broke it down and explained it to me when I was a bit younger. It took me a decade of trial and error and figuring stuff out to try and get my head around it. And that's why I do enjoy just breaking down. And you know, I'm not a financial advisor, it's not financial advice, but I'm just giving you some of my little, I suppose, Dinny bombs. But those that panic in a crisis or panic sell, over time, it ends up being a bad decision. So compounding and time are the two most important things with being a successful investor. Okay? So the amount of money that you have or you start with doesn't matter. Alright? And the actions that you take doesn't matter. The less action, the better. Another example of how a professional can be beaten by an amateur. The S&P index, okay? We've hedge funds in America, probably thousands of hedge funds. Only 4 of them beat the S&P index, okay? So they're all professional money managers. And here's me, I can get my smartphone, I can open up my Trading 212 app, and I can buy the S&P index, and I can beat hundreds of professional money managers, and I'm a pleb. Like, that doesn't happen in the normal world. I heard the example from, I think it was Morgan House was saying, like, imagine a golfer, a weekend golfer who has a few clubs, he plays twice a year. It's not possible for him to go out and win the US Open. Like, it's just never going to happen. You have to be a professional golfer and hone your skill and do it forever. Or swimming. It's not possible that some Joe Slope is swimming in his local pool, ends up going to the Olympics and wins. No, it takes years and years of work to be a professional. But in investing, the irony is that less action is better. And it's all about behavior. And it's almost all about inaction. And just being consistent is where all the success comes from. And it does take time. And I suppose we're all focused, and I'm as guilty as that. Like, you know, I was very poor. I lived in a mobile home. I wanted to get rich quick. But getting rich quick, I think, is like winning the lotto. Some people that can happen to, but like the vast majority of us, it's not going to happen to. So being able to defer your gratification and start working on generating generational wealth, I think, because it can be done with investing and it just takes time. The next thing I want to talk on, let me know if that's any good. It's a bit of a brain dump. These are sort of just me waffling and getting a few things out of my head. So hopefully it makes some sort of sense or there's some value in it. You can let me know in the comments. But the next thing is like, so that was me just challenging the narrative of investing is risky. Like, I don't believe investing is risky. I think, investing should be encouraged and start small. And then as you learn and you become a better investor and a money manager, when you begin, you're managing a very small pool of capital, so it doesn't matter if you lose it. If you start investing with 1% of your spare money at the end of the month, it doesn't affect you, but you're learning, and the only way to get ahead is to become an investor. And the only way to get good at something is to learn it. So that's why I think I encourage people to get in the game and study the people who've been successful at it. And it's not as hard as you think. It's not about trading. It's not about market timing. It's not about charting. That's all short term, get rich quick. Some people can do that. They're professionals and that's all they do. But I think every normal person can just be a dollar cost average investor and start accumulating assets. Next thing I want to just chat a little bit about is diversification. And should you diversify? Because, traditionally we'll be told, you should be diversified, have a diversified portfolio. And I'd argue that point, because it depends, I think. I'd argue the point of risk and diversification, and I think if you're in financial ruin, diversification isn't going to help you because you're too diluted and you don't have any meaningful capital. You need to be more concentrated. If you're in financial ruin, you can afford to take more risks. Why? Well, because you're already in financial ruin. If you're at your financial dreams, you can't. I don't think it's not prudent to take high risk because you don't want to go backwards. But if you're in financial ruin, well, that in the beginning I took high risks to get out of that situation, and I think a lot of successful people who have, done big things in the world have been concentrated. They haven't been diversified. They've been heavily concentrated in one thing, one business, one idea, one investment, one big fucking decision to go, right, this is where my money goes and this is where it's going. I'm going to watch this thing like a hawk and I'm going to get as much information as I can. But it's almost like this is my bet. So I think when you're younger, you can take more risk because you've time to recover. And then as you get closer to retirement, you want to reduce your risk. But, I don't have a problem with more concentration. Like, think of it, for example, if you start a business, it's so concentrated. It's all your eggs in one basket. It's all your energy, all your mental capacity, all going into this one thing that you're trying to grow from nothing. And you have a 90% chance it's going to fail in 5 years. And in the second 5 years, it's still 90%. So the odds are stacked against you. And still we go for it. But starting a business is a really good thing to do. Because if you're able to build a business and you create an asset, you have a cash flowing asset then. For as long as that business survives. But it's heavily concentrated. And I don't have a problem with that personally, because I think anyone who's achieved, not anyone, a lot of people who have achieved success haven't diversified themselves. They've been heavily concentrated. But then you're able to manage your risk with the concentration. In an investment portfolio, like when I look at what's out there, and we went through this in the last video, I don't see a better place for my money other than crypto for risk versus returns. People say that's high risky, and I'm like, well, it might be more risk, but I'm being rewarded because the returns are so high. And if you want to use a rebalancing strategy, whereby you sell off your assets annually, to rebalance your portfolio back to cash or whatever you're holding, you're totally de-risking it. But to me, I sort of, rather than trying to do everything and have this wild diversified portfolio to manage, I enjoy being more concentrated. I think I get better performance from that strategy. And then as you're able to generate more wealth and move up the financial ladders, then perhaps you don't need to take as much risk. Like, although I'm quite exposed to crypto markets, I've also totally de-risked myself because crypto can go to zero and it doesn't really affect my life. It might slow down my financial dreams. Excuse me. But I'm not in an exposed position where I go back in the ladder. You never want to take steps back, I suppose. Every time you get to the next step, you want to sort of hold on. Just some waffles, guys, tonight. Nothing crazy. I seen Fidelity, just off topic, back to crypto. Fidelity have done a paper there, and they actually deem Bitcoin as being an amazing money. That's big. They're the largest asset manager in the world. Now, Max Kaiser came to that conclusion 10 years ago. All right. But they've came to the conclusion today. That is a big statement when they do that, because the world pays attention to what Fidelity say and do. And for them to say that we think Bitcoin is actually a better money than any other money we've seen before, to me, that's very bullish. And that's why I like to be not diluted and concentrated in crypto, because I just see this thing as being such an asymmetric bet and as being no safer place for my money than to be exposed to the crypto markets. Hopefully you got some value there, guys. Let me know in the comments. I will be I'll be filming some podcasts for the YouTube channel as well. I've been chatting to some amazing characters working in the crypto and Bitcoin space. So looking forward to sharing that with you. If you're not on our YouTube, if you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe And I look forward to chatting more. And if anyone's wanting to chirp in about anything I was talking about there, or want me to elaborate, or maybe I didn't explain something, or even maybe you don't agree with me, throw it in there. I'm here to learn. I am by no means a closed book. I'm a sponge. I always want to learn. I always want to talk and network and grow myself and grow my own thesis and learn my mistakes, because I make them all the time. And I actually, if I'm going to make mistakes, I want to make them fast so I can pivot fast. Guys, thanks for being here, and hit the like button, and have an awesome day. Dinny out.